So if you want to, you can close your eyes. And I'd just like to invite you to place your hands on your low, low, low belly. And see if for a few rounds of deep inhaling through the nose and exhaling out of the mouth, if you can really direct the breath into your hands, into your low belly. So breathe in. Fully inhaling, filling up the whole entire low belly, pelvis, almost breathing down into your sex organs. When you exhale, see if you can bring your front and back sides closer together, however that looks, however that feels. We'll sit with that for like a minute and a half. Seeing if you can really make that exhale as audible as possible, or as audible as feels good. Take 3 more rounds with this low, 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 low belly breathing. Finishing up with your last round. And then just take a moment, maybe 30 seconds plus or minus 5 on either side to breathe naturally. Just taking a little break. Maybe if you want to roll your head and neck a little bit, or shrugging your shoulders, just taking any movement that feels organic to you. And then from here, I'd like for you to place your hands on your solar plexus, right between your rib cage, right underneath your chest. And what we'll do is we'll take about a minute and a half to send your breath into this area, really isolating and directing the breath into this region. And if you have a hard time, like for me, the low belly, low pelvis area is like, I'm like locked, you know, and so that's okay. Just breathe through it, see what comes up, and just kind of allow yourself to dip out of the thought stream and into the body, into the breath. So yeah. Making this area as big as possible and then as small as possible in quotes. And taking about 3 more rounds with this big solar plexus breathing. Finishing up your last round, and just pause, releasing your hands, taking any movement or stillness that you are craving from the inside out. And then one more time, we'll do this. And guess where we're going next? Surprise, motherfucker. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so here's where we're going. And so, yeah, just isolating the breath as best you can. This is, you're not being graded. And so just really isolating the breath into the heart space, seeing if you can like puff this area up as much as possible. Take a minute and a half. I'll let you know whenever we're gonna wrap up, and then I'll create a safe, I'll state my terms and conditions for this container. So, all right. So from here, we'll go ahead and start breathing in, puffing this area up. And exhale. And take 3 more rounds. In your own time. And in this moment, in this stillness, I just want to call upon Prime Source Creator, True God, to help us to really embrace a safe container where we can relate to each other, free from the confines of the duality construct, free from all interference, so that we can be safe and protected as holders of the original soul blueprint that we have. Mm. And then take your time with opening your eyes. Don't rush that if you don't want to. Awesome. Wow. Yeah, isn't it interesting how like you notice like one or two places is like, oh, no, I don't want. For me, it's always like the low. I mean, usually like it's funny because I feel like my solar plexus area is always like, you know, like no problems there for whatever reason. You know, I guess that's like the beauty of being a Leo. But like, you know, I think the heart and the sacral sort of breathing gets like, oh, I can't, no.
That's
But
how
something,
it's
but something bad will happen, you know. So where did you guys feel? How was that for you?
I felt myself like
Very.
holding on so tight.
For me, it was relaxing, but also the knowing, the tuning into the container of where the breath should go. It brings more awareness to the body and to be in the body. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so interesting that we're going through this whole year with a respiratory virus, right? When the breath holds the key to most of the answers, like, you know, and so that's why, you know, for me, I've been practicing all forms of breath work throughout this year to kind of try to like keep myself, you know, as best as possibly could be together, you know. So yeah, I'm just going to share my screen with you guys. Actually, do you have any like pieces, glimpses from Taurus that you want to talk about? Like value recognition, tasting food, enjoying, savoring the moment, abundance, money, like these things that we talked about. No problem. I mean, I'm kind of putting you guys on the spot here, but if you want, I can go first and share like some of my own inner revelations, which is just like, because I have a spirit, I am worthy of it all, you know? There's nothing that I desire that I'm not worthy of. And just really like making that a cellular recognition rather than just a knowing, you know, because like you can know something in your head and not know it in your heart, right? So that's my share. All
I feel
right.
like the way in which I eat is shifting.
Good.
I feel like I eat less certain foods and I eat more of others. So,
Nice.
and also I'm very tuned into the food that I'm eating. So that is different.
That's interesting because it's like when we're in a space of a greater level of wholeness and a greater level of like recognition of who and what we are, we have like everything changes. And I think the way that we relate to food is less of like emotional eating, maybe like, and even less of even viewing it as fuel. It's like viewing it as something to be enjoyed, you know?
Yeah, something to do with other people. There's, you know, people who say like never eat alone, like,
Aww.
you know.
Totally. That's very like interesting because it pulls in the other piece of like the axis, which is Scorpio, which is like the merging and, you know, being a part of with other people and the shared experience of life. So, and we will talk about that when we get to Scorpio week. And so, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if y'all are all good on Taurus.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I live in, so I didn't really, it doesn't really stand out to me.
You're like, this is my life, so nothing is, abnormal about this. Okay, so cool. I mean, imagine if somebody had like a chart of just Aquarius placements. They would be like, ah, how do I ever? All right. All right. So we're going to play this, and I'm just going to take you through a few things, and we're going to stop and talk along the way as it goes. I'm going to move this. I love this image because it's very like, I mean, this point right here is really like the whole point of this course, and it's the whole point of everything. I mean, kind of, in a sense, like to be able to arrive at the very center of everything and not so that's why I chose this image, and also the mind, because Gemini has everything to do with the mind. All right, so all right, so this is what we're going to talk about today, the stuff of the mind. So there's learning, so we're going to get into like early education, how that was for you, comprehending, understanding, which I'm kind of starting to like rewrite the English language for myself in a way that feels less compelling, like understanding. If you think about like one of the things that I think I'd like to offer as like quote homework or whatever for the week ahead is like really paying attention to the different words that we use, because the English language is literal spell casting, and
it is.
And sort of like redefining words for ourselves and taking back the English language. So that's one thing, even though I wrote it right here because hello, autopilot. So we're also going to talk about repatterning our mind, understanding what thoughts actually are, like at this point, what I perceive them to be. And it's so funny because in between the last time, like 2 weeks ago, and this time, I feel like it feels like I'm going through this in a way also, and, kind of having like unique revelations to each sign along the way. So we'll talk about thoughts and subjective and objective truth. We're going to talk about the duality construct and, the courage that it takes to speak and to share with others, and to, the exchange of information and how neutral that can actually be. So, part one, early education, learning or indoctrination. All right. So we're going to take a second to talk about this. I want to hear from you guys, and I'll stop sharing the screen in a second, but like, I want to know like what your experience of early schooling was, because I mean, for me, like I can remember just having this sort of like knowing, I don't need to fucking be here. Like, I don't need to be learning this. What is this? Why am I busying myself with this, And sure, I love to learn, so it's not learning, but it's the education system perhaps that I was brought up in. So no, for myself, do I feel like it encouraged me to be my brightest and best self? No. And so we'll get into this as well, because I kind of feel as though, creativity, spiritedness, the abstract perspective, seeing things from, a aerial view, or like innovation, things like this are very innate to my nature, but I did not feel as though those things were encouraged. And in fact, it's the linear or the sort of like, like you learning what I'm supposed to, that I felt like it encouraged. So that's that. I want to hear from you guys what your experience was, because like I've always been like, fuck rules, you know, and like fuck, you know, sort of like assimilating and playing a part and doing the thing. And, you know, I've always felt that way. So I don't know like what you guys perceive. And Nicoletta, I apologize. I know you're a school counselor. So like, you know.
Oh, I know. For me, school is indoctrination. And when my kids that come in my office, they complain about it. I'm like, well, you are the future of our generation. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to take this and let your kids be in the same system, or are you going to change the system? So this is how I talk to my kids.
Love
Me
it.
and them, we're kind of like, we're undercover, you see, like we can tell stuff like that. But I'm making them aware, okay, you don't like the system. What, I'm not going to use the F word, but what are you going to do about this?
Yeah.
You want to change the system. That's why you're here, to experience the system, because you want to change it. And I have students that they were telling me, yes, I'm going to create this school that's going to be completely different.
Love it.
So I'm just putting the seeds in their heads so they will go. Yeah, that's how I do it.
Absolutely. My roommate is a language arts educator. Like she's amazing. Like I hear her on her Zoom calls and she's like, just make sure that you don't trust the narrative, and like, you know, authority doesn't really matter, and like, you know, just kind of like placing those little seeds, exactly like what you said, where, you know, she's really helping them to like refine their own experience and their own truth as best she can, operating within the square, you know.
Yes. We gotta be careful because we also want to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My daughter is totally against the system, and I was telling her, baby, you just have to be in the matrix, learn what you need, learn your skills, and when you're ready to do your own thing, you do your own thing. And I apologize, I have to put you in the system because it's what it is.
Yeah.
But my daughter is very awake, so.
Good. Yeah, I imagine if you're her mother, like I can't imagine that she would be asleep, you know.
Yeah, she is dead. Yeah, but the kids don't like the system. It's too, first of all, it's too long of a day. They have to be sitting their butt on a chair doing boring work. It's not stimulating their brain, their creativity. It's
Tedious.
it's a down, but at the same time, it's, if you're looking from a different perspective, it's harvesting their energy, because the system, it's harvesting the pain and the frustration and the fear, because those kids are in constant fear. If they're not going to do this, something's going to happen to them. So it's all this energy, and it's like such a beautiful, can you imagine the amount of energy those kids can generate? And then it's taken from them by this monstrosity of cabal system.
Right.
So that's how I see it. And when I go in there, the energy feels very low, very dense. I had kids that want to commit suicide. I had kids that they say, I don't want to be here. Kids that don't like the principal and how they get treated. It's like a lot of things that are affected, and I'm there to like hold space for these kids and make them graduate. Like, you see, this is the reality. This is not going to be forever. It's temporary. Let's graduate you. And yeah, one of my kids, many of them, they had to go through that, to that frustration. And then they go in the world and they go to college. It's part of the same system they have to put up until they're on their own. So,
and then they can work a job where they're still kind of enmeshed in the same system, and then they can get married and then have a house and then have kids and then retire and then, you know, and then die. Like,
they have kids and then divorce.
Right, exactly. I know. Well, you know.
That's not happened to me, but you know, they are the shifters of they are the change they want to see in the world. They'll have to make it. They are those kids, and us holding space for them, and
absolutely
hard too. Yeah. So that's my take on education. I have very strong opinion, especially coming from a communist country. I see.
Oh my gosh.
And this is like absolutely slavery. The education system in America, it's absolute slavery, and we actually had it better in communist country, because we had the freedom like at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, you'll go home and play outside. Here, it's
Mhm.
until 3 o'clock.
Oh, and then you have homework that you're doing until 6:30, 7:30. I was in AP classes somehow. Don't, you know, and just the amount of homework.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you like have like activities. I mean, there's no time to regenerate. And then it's like, you know, my ex had 3 kids. He still does, but like he doesn't exist for me anymore. So, and they would all have like sleep paralysis demons. They would all have like, you know, these like really, I mean, existential, like for a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old to be as like tortured. And I kind of think that like at this point, it's so, I mean, it's worse than when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, it was pretty fucking bad. Like, you know.
They make it harder. They make it harder on the parents, on the kids. Is the system adds more stuff to the teacher. So it's usually very different how
Yeah.
it used to be a teacher 10 years ago or 13 years ago when I got to America and how it is now. The amount of work you have to do as a teacher, as an educator,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
brings everybody down because it's overworking and overstressed and people are in burnout. So
Mhm.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Nicoletta.
No.
Really?
It's just yeah, only your volume is really low for some reason.
Gotta get you a microphone, girl.
Mm.
Hello.
But it wasn't a few minutes ago.
Oh, interesting. It's a glitch.
So, did you say where are you from, Nicoletta? Did you say that you were in a?
Romania.
Sorry.
I'm from Romania.
Romania, and you grew up in communism in your education. Interesting. Have you ever read any John Taylor Gatto?
No, I haven't.
Is that the Against Her Story book? Okay.
When I guess like within a couple years of graduating high school, I stumbled upon his book. It's called like something like Dumbing Us Down. He was like the New York City and New York State Teacher of the Year.
Wow.
And he wrote this book called like Dumbing Us Down, the hidden agenda of the compulsory school system or whatever. And he did a lot of the like showing the history of how like, you know, during the Industrial Revolution, you know, they needed to fill factories and they needed a regimented schedule that was very mechanical and unnatural. And, you know, all the people moving in from the countryside to the cities to fill these factories were not very well suited to the factory life. So they built schools to resemble the factories, and the bells ringing, and this is when you eat, and you know,
Horrible.
the schools, the hospitals, the prisons, the factories are all kind of
modeled after the same.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. That is like so powerful.
yeah.
Where the system was built, and it was built intentionally like this. They're harvesting people's energy. Like I don't.
Right.
Some people think this idea is crazy. It's not. It's I
Yeah.
feel it.
Oh no, I totally relate to that, because the more that I personally divest, the more that I'm like, I have all this energy all of a sudden, and like I'm clear to make my own assumptions and my own it's just the energetic harvesting is very real. And you know, I think over the course of time it's happened through the occult. You know, not that, I mean, I'm technically like a part of the occult with like astrology and stuff like that, but like the darker practices that have gone on for a long time, you know, to sort of like herd or cull the collective one way or another, you know, now I feel like is being used more with technology, you know, rather than like maybe, you know, magic. And so it's like, it's interesting now that we're like setting up for virtual school. I'm like, oh, how nice. And, you know,
frustrated in virtual
Mhm.
school.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know, my poor, but also like empowered and amazing roommate, you know. Yeah, totally. Man, I want to put this on YouTube or something, this conversation, and like this, just this one, because right now the orbiting north node is in Gemini, and this is the, like, this is all what we're like, you know, breaking down and disseminating collectively, ideally, right? You know, the orbiting north node works in an axis. So we have the orbiting north node right now is in Gemini, and the orbiting south node is in Sagittarius. We're supposed to be moving towards this Gemini construct of really using our brains to be like, what the fuck? Like, you know, all this information is coming out on the CIA website, and like on, you know, they're giving it all in different mediums for us to figure out. And then there's like but the south node in Sagittarius is getting so snagged in different belief systems and different poles, which is what we're going to talk about too at the end. And I want to put, well,
you have my permission.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, cool. Just let me know if you know, I can like, yeah, we'll talk about it. But I just think that this is a really powerful conversation to be having. Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen now. All right, so yeah, okay. So a huge part of learning from my perspective is unlearning. So like, what are the false truths that we have been taught? Where do they come from? Why do we perceive and believe them? You know, these are like the bigger questions that I think, like with the orbiting north node in Gemini, we would be asking ourselves, you know, and I do think that a lot of people are, which is so beautiful, and I'm so happy about that. Yeah, because, you know, like Gemini also has to do with media. It has to do with, you know, the early education, media, you know, and also like the exchange of false and just of information in books and in, you know, in television, just all the different mediums that information can come out. And I think that there's a lot of, so this is where we sort of get back into Aries and Taurus, because in order to know what is true and what is not true, what is a truth and what is a false truth, we have to first know who the fuck we are. We have to recognize that we exist as people, which is why we start with Aries. And then we have to understand or understand what we value, which is where we get to Taurus. And then once we understand those two pillars and we recognize the programming that is deny yourself, deny yourself, then we can really like overstand that we are worthy of like just really figuring out the truth that works for us. Oh, Laura Beth is here. Yay. Okay, cool.
Oh, I just thought of a couple things that I wanted to share.
Do it. Let's talk about it.
So you asked about our schooling experience. I have a story that's kind of speaks to that.
I want to hear it.
I guess I was in third grade, and you know, looking back, this like perfectly illustrates Mercury and Taurus, Mars and Taurus.
Right.
But so I was in third grade, like social studies class. We were taking a quiz, and I was like the last one to finish, and which was typical. And so I took my time. I mean, I always did well, but so my teacher's like, Asher, next time, you know, we're gonna have a time limit, and if you don't finish your test, you know, I'm gonna paddle you. And
paddle you?
Yes.
What the?
With a wooden paddle. And
Oh
so
my God.
the next time I took the test, or the quiz, I did it at the only pace that I could, the Mercury and Taurus pace.
Aw.
And yeah, she took me out into the hallway in
And
the
she
middle,
paddled you?
paddled me, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
That makes me so, like, livid for you because, like, there's nothing wrong with going at your own pace. You know what I mean? At all whatsoever. And then it's like, how many more reflections of that did you receive, like, in your life, you know, of like, hurry up, you know? It's like,
Oh yeah. So like in English class, it always took me a long time to process words and write papers. So I almost never, like, I never turned anything in on time, and a lot of times I just never finished assignments.
right.
You know, what I did finish was pretty high quality, but it, like, I had to go. I almost didn't graduate high school because of it. I had to go to summer school for 2 summers to, you know, graduate to make up.
Yeah, just take the summertime that we're like supposed to enjoy.
In Saturday school, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that just makes me want to give you a hug. Like, what the?
And
Yeah.
it's like grounded me for like almost the entire summer between my junior and senior year because of it. Which, like, was my first serious bout of depression, which would.
that's so traumatic.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. And you know, the fucky thing with that is that you are actually brilliant. Like, I've known you for a while now, and I can say for sure that, like, you are brilliant, and that there are, like, so many different kinds of intelligence. And, like, having experienced your work, like, kinesthetic intelligence and just kind of innately understanding the mechanics of the skin sleeve, right, is a huge part of intelligence. And yet kids are perpetually disembodied with the education system. So nobody knows how to read the signals of their body. Everybody is snared hard as a result of that, you know? So just cancel, clear, delete, you know, because that's just some bullshit.
Yeah.
And we're on a roll. We're like in the pot. We're like stirring it.
I'm sorry I'm late.
So,
Hey,
sorry.
no, it's okay. Welcome so much, Laura Beth. And I just want you to know that we're going to put this on YouTube because I've decided that, like, this conversation is important and helpful. So this is Laura Beth. Nicoletta, I'm not sure if you know Laura Beth. And then Asher, you and Laura Beth know each other. Yeah. What's up, girl?
Nothing much. I was actually caught up listening to the Taurus Zoom and I got lost in it. And then I looked at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm late.
No, I mean,
I was
welcome. We're so happy to have you. I'm grateful. And yeah, I think that this is a great one to join in. Do you have any Gemini placements in your chart? Hello. Can't hear you.
Frozen screen.
Girl. Can't see it. I know that I can see her window in the back. I know that she's at Mountain Light Sanctuary, and so perhaps, like, this is like a result of the weird internet there. It's hard to get internet. Oh no, there she goes. All right, well, we'll see if she comes back and, you know, keep it moving. All right, so you were gonna say something. Yes.
And back to what you were saying as far as rewriting the language. So as you know, I doubt Nicoletta or Laura Beth would know, I was a reggae DJ until pandemic. And then and so I was introduced to, like, you know, a lot of the Rastafarian traditions. One of them is to rewrite the language so that it reflects, well, yeah, so that you're not, so for example, instead of a dedication, they would have a livication, because they want to honor the life of the person, and the eternal life, you know, acknowledge that.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful and just powerful. I know, like the weekend, when you get to the weekend, you're the weekend. Like it's,
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
I know. And the weekday and the government, govern your mind. I mean, it's everywhere. Like, and I mean, gosh, I could probably think of a few more examples. Like, believe, speaking of the South Node being in Sagittarius, believe is to be the lie of, or be the lie of Eve, depending on who eats the apple, right? Just, you know, there's so many different, gosh, we could do a whole thing on this probably, but like, you know, oh gosh, there's so many other, but I love the livocation rather than dedication.
Yeah, that's where the overstand comes from too. That was a Rasta.
Oh, I love it. I'm living for that. And, you know, I've really gained a lot of insight about this through my new mentor, who's like just amazing. Her name is Lauda. And she's just really helped me to see, because really like the true intention of our words, I feel, is recorded, is felt, is heard. But I think there has to be a certain amount of like inner work that is done before we're able to like feel even who we are, so that we can have a true intention or truly intend anything. You know? All right, so it looks like Laura Beth is back. Yay. And so we'll see what happens. I know the internet at Mountain Light Sanctuary is kind of weird. And then we'll go back to the PowerPoint. But that was a fucking awesome point, and I just really appreciate that, and I think that it's really helpful. Welcome back. I know that the internet at Mountain Light is weird.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Okay, so I have a 12th house cusp in Gemini. That's it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So this is good. But you have some Sag, right? You have some of the other piece. You have like Mars.
I have Mars and Sag. Yeah, I have Mars and Sagittarius.
Awesome. So we'll be able to see sort of like how that connects once we get to Sagittarius, which is super exciting. Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and then we'll keep this moving, and I'm sure that there will be more points for conversation. Laura Beth, we were just talking about like how some very wise traditions have sort of like rewritten the English language to incorporate their motive and the true intention. And one example that Asher brought up was dedication, and how like the Rastafari folks actually like rewrote that to mean, or to sort of, they say livocation rather than dedication, because it reflects the eternal nature of the human spirit.
Yeah.
I'm
okay. I love it. I'm into it too.
All right, awesome. So here we are at present time.
Also, instead of like saying we or you, they say I and I, or even I. It's like the individual and the collective, like your boy was saying, collective of individualists.
We are an individual collective, or a collective of individuals. Gosh, yes. Yeah, that guy is awesome. I'm really happy that I stumbled upon his work because it helps me to frame like what the fuck I was seeing and remembering. All right, so we'll move on to how a true Gemini, the true Gemini archetype, and a true Mercurial person questions everything. So, you know, what is a belief that you guys have held or is commonly held in the culture? Like one of the beliefs that I've found is like voting, like, you know, that you have to vote or X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And, you know, I think that like, when I think about like a Gemini child, like a child of the Gemini archetype, they would ask, why, you know, like with everything. And so I think that that's like a really good space to get to, you know, at this point in time. So.
Yeah, like why do we need a representative?
Yeah.
Why can't we solve our own problems?
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Why can't we work together?
My son's a Gemini, and he asks why about everything.
oh, yay. I'm glad that he's there, you know, because that's a really inquisitive place to be. And the word president, to preside over, like, I joined a dating app like not too long ago, and then I deleted it a few weeks later because that's just kind of like how I roll. And one of the things that they asked was, if you were president, what would you do? And I was like, I would fire myself, because humans with any sense don't need somebody to rule over them. No saviors. Okay. So, all right. How about you guys? Do you have any, you know, beliefs that you've always like wondered, like, why is that held in the culture? What the, you know? And if not, no pressure. I'm just opening up the dialogue.
The one that, I don't know, that's been bugging me is like the whole like belief that like crime and addiction and things are like a personal moral like failure, like it's a choice you make, like to be a, and you obviously like have, I don't know, it's like without taking account into all the systems of manipulation.
Mm-hmm. Well, like take like the, you know, the crack epidemic in the 80s, or the, you know, like that was like the govern your mind legitimately, and the police force, right, like funneled crack into certain neighborhoods for certain reasons. And I feel as though it takes a very sharp and a very, like, someone whose spirit cannot be fractured, which, I mean, that's not me. I don't know if that's anybody in here, but it takes a very smart and very able person to be like, no, I'm not going to engage with that. And I am going to somehow unplug from all of this and rise up out of, but that's an exception. That's the, you know, and that is, you know, the piece that I feel we're getting into now, which is what Og was talking about, the individualist collective, is that I do feel as though there is some, within reason, individual responsibility to be taking right now in ways that we can.
Definitely, like now more than ever, for sure. Like the more awake you are, the more responsibility you can take.
Oh, that's so true. With awareness comes that, for sure. And yeah, what a beautiful time to be alive. So these are a few falsehoods that I've discovered. Do you have something else you want to say?
That's just one that was on the top of my head. There's thousands of them.
There's so many, I know. And it's like, it's literally, I see it as like literally like these thoughts being like transferred from one person to like generationally.
Oh yeah.
from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. When we get to Cancer, we'll talk about breaking these constructs of generational, ancestral, you know, curses, or
Yay.
we are the cycle breakers.
Yeah. I was raised with the, you know, the belief that we are of a fallen race. You know, that we,
Yeah.
and
I
that,
perceive that to be true.
yeah. But like,
For me.
I think that truth should be conveyed to someone who can understand it with some maturity,
Right.
instead of like a toddler.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And then it's also the sort of like the false truths or the half truths or the truths mixed with bullshit, because why did we fall, right?
Right.
Did we fall because we were manipulated and entrapped and entrained, or did we fall because we had all of our conscious faculties and chose to fall?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the whole, like the biblical story about the serpent and the apple, like that was a very like, here, there's this apple, it will give you all the knowledge and you can eat it and it'll be great. And, you know, it's like, that is deceptive, because I don't think that she was necessarily told. I can't remember, I don't know the Bible like the back of my hand, but like, that is deceptive. That is an agreement of ensnarement and entrapment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not clear cut. And I think that that's like, you know, there has to be like some level of awareness at least, or ownership of the fact that like that was, you know, because I think that that's an allegory for the various falls in like density throughout the looping system that we've been in. So it's like, I mean, like, there have been all kinds of agreements of entrapment that we hold in our blood, in our bones, in our DNA I mean, you know, it's like, you know, and we continue to go along and we continue to agree until we don't, because that's the whole point. And from my perspective of like what's going on right now is like humans actually benevolently, partially getting like every opportunity possible to see that this is all bullshit, you know? I just think it's hilarious. I mean, you know, from a removed, you know, sort of like, because it's also really fucked up, you know, but so, yeah, does anybody have anything that they want to add? Because I love this conversation. I'm loving it.
I wanna see your bullet points.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll show you. And then I want to hear what Nicoletta was going to say as well.
So I'm a Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
Since I stepped my foot in church in Romania, I was questioning everything. Why do we have to do this? Like, why are people talking about the blood, and why do you have
Cannibalism?
For me, that was like, I always had such a reaction to it. Like it was held in the cells of my body that that's not true, and that is false, and that is a manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And later on to find out, doing past life work, that I was actually sacrificed in blood sacrifice rituals many times. And if you have this reaction, you might have gotten that too, because I see you like, oh my gosh. Yeah, so
yeah, I mean, I'm sure I've had all kinds of like disturbing, you know.
Yeah, so that was very powerful. So, oh, now I understand why I always felt like that, because that was actually taken from in my opinion, that is my opinion, I don't question anybody's belief, but it was taken from actually satanic and really malevolent rituals and put into the religion to perpetuate the harvesting of the soul, and you know, all of these things they're doing to humans to keep them trapped in the cycle.
Absolutely.
So it's
I
was like 3 or 4 years old when I realized that that's not. So everything I question, I always be like that. I'm a Gemini.
Totally. I remember being like, I mean, I was raised Catholic and I went to Sunday school, and I would always be like, why is it this way? Why is it this way? You know, just like annoying the shit out of the Sunday school teacher with questions that like nobody can answer.
Yeah, they said this is just the way it is.
Exactly. Just the way it is. And I just want to reinstate too that this is a container where we all get to have our own truths, and that we all get to come to the table from where we are as we are without having to augment or change anything to seem a certain way.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, Laura Beth?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you, but I always struggled with the issues within patriarchy within religion. Like,
Me too.
really bad. Like, when I went on my spiritual journey, I was more trying to figure out how I could step away from that and like move away from those patriarchal things, because surely like there's a path, but it doesn't mean that I have to bow out of it and feet necessarily. So
Right.
I've read Mary Magdalene Revealed. I've actually been reading it, and it's like it talks about Mary Magdalene's gospel, and it shares a perspective that isn't quite included in the rest of the Bible that was hidden away. So I've been like really digging into that and finding more information and learning and curious. And I know that's very Gemini to go and be willing to learn
Mm,
something new. So it was a challenge to, when I first started this years ago, to step away from those beliefs and be able to say, hey, what can I learn about what's really the truth?
And like the role that the feminine plays, you know, that's exactly what we're going to talk about when we get into duality at the end of this. We're going to talk about like, you know, the masculine and the feminine, and how in a utopian existence they both have an equal but not same, because the masculine and feminine are different, and we all have those parts of us that are hella distorted. I mean, I can only speak for myself, you know. And I think that like all of the, so I've been like looking and peeking into like the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Like the hidden teachings of Yeshua and like the Gospel of Thomas. And like, I think I've done a little bit of reading on Mary Magdalene. I have a few books that I've read on her, and, you know, it just makes you wonder, like, what does this serve? Who am I really bowing to? You know, because like, I don't know, like I've met some Christians, no offense to any and all Christians who could be tuning into this, but there is sort of this like self-righteous indignation and a condemning of all other pathways to, you know, the truth, if you will. And I just, you know, I find that to be personally oppressive, because it's like, what about all of the, like, you know, the indigenous cultures? Like, they didn't know of Christianity as it's told, as we're spelled into perceiving and believing it, right? So makes you wonder, like, what is it? Like, I perceive Jesus and Isa, which I feel like is Jesus, you know, to be the emissary, excuse me, for some reason, like that's not wanting to come out of my mouth. The emissary, like to show us how it's done, and the Sophia or the feminine or the Mary Magdalene or whoever it was, right? To have, you know, I mean, she held the container for that, you know, and that is something that's going on within us. We don't even need anybody for that. So I'm going to go back to my slides. Gosh, man, it's like, all right, so humans did not evolve from monkeys. I perceive that to be complete bullshit. I don't have a citation for that, because, you know, I kind of feel like science is, you know, there's aspects of it that are true, but there's also a lot that is suppressed and a lot that is sort of like augmented to fit a certain agenda. So, you know, I don't perceive humans, you know, came from monkeys. There's a lot of like arrogance, like especially among like more academic communities, because that's where I come from. Like after religion, I went to academia, which is like this very like we are figuring it all out, and like really, you know, what is it that is feeding this inquiry into you on an invisible subtle level, whatever. That's when we get into like Scorpio and Pisces. We can talk about that more. But so I don't perceive that humans have evolved. I feel like we've actually fallen through density, through agreements of entrapment, and also being like very much like dumbed down. My other perspective is science and spirituality wind up in the same place every time unless suppression and augmentation is involved. Like when you look at like theoretical, like quantum physics, I feel like that gets closer to the quote truth than perhaps what I've read in the Bible, you know. And then I just put points at the medical establishment as a whole, because everybody is fucking sick, okay? Like it's not working. Like, you know, so that's that. So now you've seen my slides. Do you guys have anything that you want to add, or do you want me to keep going? We're playing.
The belief that like
You can keep
the
going.
system we have now is not perfect, but it's the best possible system. That's fucking
Yeah, I'm like, fuck anything that's ever existed before. Like capitalism, communism, and it's like, who is the person who is like implementing this? Like, is it a bottom-up structure or is it a top-down structure? Because everything that I've ever known has been top-down, where like we tell you this is the way that it's going to be, and you can either accept it or live on the fringes of society and not participate with everyone else. Who's just hitting my hot button? All right, so I'm gonna go back to my slides if that's cool with everybody. Cool. All right, so the virtue of deprogramming and reprogramming. So I think one thing that I would be mindful of that I have not been mindful of is that there's not one specific way to deprogram, to unplug, to detach, to divest, you know, and there's not one way to reprogram or restructure or reorganize. You know, I think that, you know, deprogramming helps you to be flexible and open, where you're like, it's kind of like Teflon, right? Like a lot of meditation teachers talk about the Teflon mind and being open to everything, but really accepting nothing unless it sort of like hits your inner bell, or like rings a certain ding, or, you know, catches a certain resonance within you. And, you know, it helps you to become more certain in who and what you are based on who and what you're not, like not coming from monkeys and not being at the pinnacle of humanity's evolution, fucking clearly, no offense, you know, to everybody, but like we can do better and we are going to do better. Like that's what I perceive. It gets you to your own life purpose quicker. So that's where, you know, we sort of like where the indoctrination or the education system meets the workforce, where it's like, you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can be an artist and make basically no money, and like, you know, or you can, you know, and you can do those things in this way, where I really feel like if everybody who is spirited were to, you know, kind of peel back a little bit and look at like the, you know, the overall, you know, if everybody were to take process in deprogramming and, you know, and reevaluating, I think every single role that could possibly be filled would be filled naturally, because that's just like organic human, not reptilian, but human nature.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this also, you know, for me, like my whole life has always been about getting to, you know, understand, right, the motivation behind human behavior and like why we all do the things that we do. So that way, you know, somebody having their own experience isn't like a punch to your own gut. Like you're like, you know, you allow them to have their experience and not impress or impose anything upon it. And it doesn't have to shift or affect or change your experience. You know, this is like, I think a lesson that we're all learning through the school of fucking hard knocks right now. And, you know, this is a great time to unplug from the matrix, which is, you know, I've been studying a lot about like simulation theory because that's what I started to see, you know, I didn't realize that that's exactly what I was seeing. I thought I was seeing some kind of like future premonition when in fact, like, well, when in my opinion, what I was seeing had already happened and like is happening now. So, you know, I think the matrix relies on our consciousness to fuel it, which is why divesting from any and all narratives outside of, you know, self and your community and your reach and your sphere of influence, whatever that is just like one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself. And it's also a great way to lose friends. You know, yeah. So do you guys have anything that you want to add to that, just out of curiosity? No pressure.
I'm just always surprised at how much more there is to do. Just,
I know. But I think that the way that consciousness and time is accelerating we're going to get it done.
Yes, and people that disagree with you and you might lose as friends, they're gonna eventually catch up at some point.
Sure, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think especially as time goes on and things are like just so obvious that you can't fucking miss it, you know, it's like, you know, or not, because it's more comfortable and feels more safe, which is where we sort of get into, you know, the Taurus and Cancer sort of on either side of Gemini, in really desiring comfort and desiring safety. Gemini is not a safe place. Gemini is where, you know, people come to the table to have like this genuine conversation, and there's not really too much emotion or comfort or safety in that, which is beautiful. I perceive it that way, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to the slides. And then, okay, take every thought captive, because, you know, I'm of the perspective that some of the thoughts that we have within the sim are placed as ways to sort of like, you know, maybe pull us off track, or like, you know, like lead us in a direction where like maybe we miss like a beat, or we follow like a path to where we maybe like wouldn't have otherwise gone. So just paying every thought through your spirit, not necessarily your soul that has had all these incarnations and these different like tragedies and these different experiences, not your body, because, you know, I think the body can be a little bit of a snare. That's why body work and like healing the body and like really clearing out the body is so necessary. Humans are made of 70%, supposedly, you know, what is a percentage? I mean, shit, but humans are made of water. Water is very programmable. So that's why, like, for me, like with, okay, like FIVEG, you know, like, and the different, like, you know, system of frequency that we have coming online, and that has come online in certain parts of the world. And I think it's come online in Charlotte, like, honestly, but like when we choose to really like question every thought that we have, and when we choose to sort of like peel through, like follow that, like, why am I thinking that? Where does that come from? Is that organic to who I really am? Is that organic to my spirit? You know, and then we can sort of like arrive at the mystical center, which is what we're going to talk about next when we get into duality. When the mind is quiet, which is possible for some and not so possible for others, and that's okay. I think sometimes for myself, I can only strive to find the gap in between the thoughts in meditation. And I can also observe all of my thoughts. And you recognize the thoughts that aren't yours, you have actually more access to your origin, your memory, and like what you're here to actually figure out and do. So yeah. Does anybody have anything that they want to share? If you do, then I am here for that, like beyond here for that. But if not, I'll keep going. All right. Face, vase. What do you guys see? Do you see a face or do you see a vase? This is just an optical illusion that I enjoyed studying when I was in undergrad. So let's talk about the duality construct, because I think that this is what we are currently in, you know, and especially right now with the orbiting north node being in Gemini and the orbiting south node being in Sag, there's a lot of polarity. There's this huge amount of polarity, and everybody thinks that they are right and that other people are wrong. And I feel as though that's by intelligent, but not necessarily divine design. So the two different, oh, let's see, looks like I have a chat or something. Hang on.
I said I see both at once. I didn't want to interrupt you.
That's because you're Divergent, like the movie. You know?
I see them at the same time.
That's good. Yeah. And I think that so that what you said right there, we're going to come back to that, because I think that's a really, really important space to be. Okay. So
I think it's a multidimensionality.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that like we are multidimensional. We have the, you know, ability to supersede dimension and time and space and all of these constructs that we've been, you know, indoctrinated or taught, right? But it's but I perceive that the matrix specifically is, you know, it's all about duality, and that's what Gemini has to do with. It's the masculine and the feminine, it's the right and the wrong, the good, the bad, the light and the dark, the good versus evil, you know. And if you think about all of the different like systems that are in existence, from religion to govern your mind to like, you know, education to everything, it's all sort of like perpetuating this. And then we get into like the masculine and the feminine. So the masculine part of us, because these are all pieces and parts of us, you know, the masculine is all about like going, doing, you know, protecting, providing, like, you know. And I think in general, humanity has a very, very wounded masculine. We're very like conditioned and, you know, and snared, frankly, to perceive that somebody else outside of us has to do those things for us, regardless of what our, you know, gender identity is. You know, and then there's the feminine, the nurturing, receptive ability to hold space. Like when I think about Gemini as a sign, as an archetype, it's actually quite androgynous because it's both, in shamanic cultures, like, or like indigenous cultures, who is born as a shaman is revered as two-spirit because they are able, first of all, with great awareness, like Asher said, comes great responsibility. So they have the both within them, and they're able to really exist as that both in a whole and healthy way, likely after a lot of inner seeking, inner medicine, inner work, And my personal least favorite, the right and the left, like the political system, which in my purview are both wrong. I mean, they're both, if you told them that, they would argue you to the death. But that's the whole point, is to transcend where duality hits you and where you feel triggered and snared within the construct and the confines and the containment that is duality. We are meant to supersede and exceed the confines of that. So yeah. Does anybody have anything that they want to share? Because I know I just like went on another like opinionated rampage, but I'm misogyrizing, by the way, in case anybody needed to to know that. I'm very opinionated about just a lot of things because I can see where humanity is getting snared into into the black square and the white square on the checkerboard of domination, control, and enslavement. And I'm just like not really okay with it and not into it and not in agreement or alignment with it. So yeah. All right, well then I'll keep going because I know that we're kind of like coming up on our time, but oh my gosh, I've so enjoyed this. So how many times have you guys heard children are to be seen and not heard, or just shut up from your parents, that is something that, and now we have this sort of like this frame being cultivated of like, don't speak on something unless you're an expert, or don't speak on something like if you're not in this one category, right? Like So there is that, and the thought policing that is. So I feel that it takes a lot of courage and true inner standing to speak from a whole and integrated place and to share, your perspective. I think that there's, a lot of people that are pointing the finger at this, this oppressor or this oppressor, when in fact, like, it's like the inner work has to be done to be able to understand, overstand, whatever, like where, like what our own individual subjective truth is and where that hooks up to potentially the collective truth that is not necessarily the hive mind, but the organic collective truth. And everything in society does not like encourage this. And in fact, up until very recently, people were killed for saying, some of the stuff that even we're saying. I don't know if that's as much of a danger now as it was, but, my friend, whenever I was talking to her about the simulation and some of the, perspective that I had received from my own spirit, frankly, was you don't have to place pearls before pigs, so to speak. So if somebody is not going to get it, don't waste your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on any level, right? That's on a micro level and a macro level. So if you have a person in your life, a friend, a relationship who is, maybe toxic to you and, constantly puts you down or like negates your own personal perspective and like where you come from, then you do not have to engage with them. Like that's another program, I think, that like everybody has to all come together and we all have to come to some sort of agreement when there's so many different kinds of people and not people here that we're not going to all find agreement, you know?
Yeah.
So does anybody have anything that they want to share before I dish out the homework that is fully optional, that you don't have to do at all in any way, but that maybe could be good for you to do?
I want to say this is my favorite astrology class.
Yeah, I know,
Like,
and it's
such strong truths that no one wants to talk about. Like, grateful for that.
I know, and I'm so glad that you guys are letting me put this on YouTube. Like I wouldn't do that without your permission, but I think like this one is like one that I would like to be able and to be willing to share because of the relevance, you know, and yeah, thank
Well,
you.
we think about the South Node in Sagittarius and then North Node in Gemini. Like, we're supposed to be willing to learn something new. You know, we're supposed to be curious right now. And this is such a great class to be like, hey, you know, this is kind of where we're going. Like, we're being open to explore and ask questions instead of just be stuck in what we believe.
Totally. You know, and to that note, like I think that this all requires like humans, period, point blank, no matter like who you are, where you come from, to kind of get over your shit in a way. And I mean that like with so much love in my heart, like, and you know, everybody's on their own journey and in their own timing with that, but also like you have to kind of open up like an unaccessed part of your mind, I think, to be able to, yeah, just like to view things from like multiple different perspectives, and then to be able to take what resonates with you and just leave the rest. Like nobody has to accept any one thing as their own truth just because this is all my truth. I came to it through my own means, through learning and unlearning and learning and unlearning and deprogramming and being like, oh my God, fuck, I can't believe I perpetuated that. Like, you know?
Yeah. One of my big tools I've discovered for that, it's like, oh shit, what was I going to say? Sorry.
No, I want to hear it. I'm like,
I lost my train of thought.
okay, so when it will come back, I think, and like then you can interject.
Yeah.
Write it down and then interject.
Yeah.
And I just want to add one thing. You can continue to do more videos about this because you're very passionate and you have very good points. And I know you write a lot on Facebook, but you can go ahead and have videos. You can have videos with other people that resonate with that, and then just have it out there because, yeah, it is planting the seed in the collective, so they can look at it from a different way, and then people, it's a miracles. It's a lesson. You say you were asking God, Holy Spirit, how to see things differently. So if people really want to see a change, they have to see things differently. So just
absolutely
how you look at things. So you see two faces, you see the vase, you see two. More multi-dimensional, we can see everything sometimes.
Oh,
absolutely.
I do.
Quality and up there. Yeah.
I remembered what I was going to say.
Do it. Say
it. So this kind of goes back to like one of those falsehoods that's very pervasive, like, but I found it within myself that like when my intuition would try to tell me something is a bad idea or steer me away from something, I would tell myself, you're just being paranoid.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That is a really good one.
You're just being paranoid.
Not a good person for me.
That's how I know it's time to like examine something. And like, because I don't believe in fiction anymore or science fiction.
Right.
Like,
I know.
Right.
all I believe in is like you said, what like rings the bell or whatever. Like,
What dings the ring inside?
right.
What were you
I
gonna say,
resonate with
Laura?
that a lot. I really resonate with that. I had a voice tell me, like, hey, this person, their spirit's not really good for you. They don't wish the best for you. I could feel something that was going to happen, but I was like, you're just being really mean to this girl. That's not cool. You're supposed to be coming from your heart, making friends with people in a healing space. Like, that's wrong. And it turned out that's exactly how she was. Like she was very nasty and rude and gossiped about me to like the other healers that we were friends with,
Ugh,
and I had told myself that I was just being mean, that I needed to give her a chance to be heart centered. And I let my guards down and I let her in, and then it hurt me. And I'm like, I should really listen to myself more. I'm actually wrapping up that situation today. So you said that, and I'm just like, on it. I got to
I love
stop calling.
that.
And I was
Yeah.
mention one thing: when you let these people go out of your life, say how you feel. Don't just let them go, because they'll go to the other person in the same way.
Yeah.
This is how you made me feel. It did not feel good, and I just cannot share my time with you at this time. If something shifts, then we're gonna be on the same vibration. We're gonna meet in the future, if that's the case.
Mm.
And then
That's
if
what I
you're
said.
saying and just attacking you and don't even recognize that they hurt you or not saying sorry, then you know who you're dealing with. I think.
Yeah, they got involved in a situation. I needed to have a conversation with someone. It was one of my friends. We needed to talk about something. He told someone that one of his friends that he needed to talk to me, and then it went all the way around this group, like that there was a problem, that I was making trouble for him, and it
Mm.
was not true. Yeah, and it wasn't true. And then they sent me messages in our big group message, like attacking me.
What
And
the?
I'm a Mars and Sagittarius, so I don't mind being a little fiery back with something. So I was just
You can
basically
handle
like,
it.
look, I don't got time for y'all bitches. Like, I don't have time for this. And I'm
Right.
kind and loving, but I was just at this point where I'm like, okay, this isn't for me. This is how I feel, and I don't want to be in your life anymore. Just how you said. So
Love
exactly
it.
what I did.
Powerful. It's so powerful.
I
And
Well
was
then
done,
very
girl.
grateful. I had listened to the Taurus, and I had already cleared my swimming pool. I was in a really good headspace, and then that message popped up. So I was listening to the last game, and then the message popped up, and I'm like, what a great time for me to just knock this out.
I know, right? And that is it's interesting that you share that story, because that is really like the shadow aspect of Gemini, just like in a nutshell, like couldn't have said it better or exemplified it better, because that sort of like gossiping, perpetuating half
Mhm.
truths, and not being honest, because in order for us to, and that's the thing, it's so hard to be honest when it's so hard maybe here in this containment system or whatever to access what our own truth is. It requires the deprogramming, and I don't know, I think in the Matrix they say, like, if somebody is still plugged in, that they're a threat, which, like, I don't like to look at it that way, because that just feels very like ugh, like harsh, and like curt, trying to figure out but I mean, it's what?
It's a pretty black and white statement.
Exactly, and here we are, right? And that's why, like, I think that there ideally would be room for the heart, which is when we'll get to Cancer and Leo. We're going to get into that. I'm so excited. And that'll be next Saturday. We'll talk about Cancer. And so, I'm going to share the homework, and, and I'll share the slides. I don't think I sent the Taurus slides last week. Did I? I might not have. I don't know. But so, okay. Journal to get inside of your thought stream. So morning pages, you just write when you wake up in the morning. That's something that I've used to sort of like access, like, okay, what thoughts are my own and what thoughts are, not mine own. And okay, and then take every thought captive. So I'd like for you to if possible, if you want to, bring a few thoughts that really seem to sweep you off your path. If you want to do a ritual releasing those thoughts, then I would love to, you know, support. I just want to, like, you know, offer love and support towards that. I think that's a beautiful endeavor and very important in reprogramming and deprogramming and, you know, taking ourselves apart, putting ourselves back together. Set verbal boundaries. So yes, this is a good time for me. No, this is not a good time for me. Yes, that does resonate with me. No, I can't talk about this with you because you're like super opinionated in my fucking face right now, you know? And, you know, the next thing I think is to see where you're getting snared in duality and just notice, maybe keep like a little written record, and we can talk about that next week.
Yay.
That's a good one.
This was a good one, I know. Just thinking that. I came like, and I wrote this, so I usually write the slides like right beforehand, but I wrote this at 4 in the morning. I was like typing on my computer, you know?
I was kind of wondering if you prepared all the slides in advance, because like I cannot operate like that. So I'm glad you said that, because I was wondering about it earlier, because I thought they were really good, but I'm like, does her Virgo have her plan out all 12?
No.
Okay.
So when I was in college, I used to like do, like, I would parse out all of my assignments, talk about crazy, like I would parse out all of my assignments into 15 and 20-minute increments, and I would study for my tests a month out in 15 and 20-minute increments. I mean, it was just insane, and I've totally lost touch with that altogether. I do my shit like right before usually, but I woke up in the middle of the night and did it then instead.
It's like you have to do it before, so you know what spirit has fresh on your heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, but I do have like all of this laid out in my head, like, you know, generally, but not necessarily. And I was saying at the beginning too, that I go through all of this. It seems like I'm, you know, going through all of this and then piecing it together in a way that maybe I didn't have it in my head before for the next time.
This is like the opportunity to learn those things from you, though, because I've been wondering, like you have so much information, and I've been wanting to learn that with you, and so I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, you guys. This was a really, really like a blessing. I'm super excited to share this, and I feel all lit up. I was going to try and take a nap, but now I'm like awake. So, all right, you guys, have a good day. Please take care of yourselves, and I will see you next Saturday at 11 Eastern.
All right.
Awesome.
If not before.
Bye.
Bye.